Hi everyone, Roy here. Roy Reads Anything, my channel about reading many things, including books about giant apes. Because I'm here to announce an event I've devised, Giant Ape-ril. So that's in April, a month of reading books about giant ape characters. King Kong, others of that ilk, other giant monsters. No, so it's not necessarily, we can stray beyond the mammalian if we want to. So, yes, Giant Ape-ril. Idea is that the prompts are very loose. It's that's the theme. It's not going to be, week by week. I mean, I'll probably do different things each week, but you could be looking at the original King Kong book. There's a novelisation of the 1933 movie that's probably the sort of source text, I suppose, for the whole thing. I'll come back to that in a bit. Other books that feature King Kong as a character, because there are other novelisations of sequel movies, of remakes. There are other works that feature King Kong in various ways, but also Kong pastiches, so it's a giant ape, not actually King Kong, but clearly that's where they've come from. They might be in books, they might be in comics, non-fiction too. I mean, it was a classic movie. The 1933 Kong film was famously brought about, a sort of a big move forward in special effects, the way the various creatures were done. So making of books, or perhaps books about some of the people involved, like Fay Wray, who was the female lead in that movie. I would bet she had an interesting life. And then wider reading in the family of giant monsters. Kong has met lots of other big monstery characters, so maybe those, or just other sort of, they're huge and they wreck things kind of creatures. Clearly, watching movies as well, it could be part of it. So that's the event in a nutshell. I'll write the prompts down. This has hosts too. I'm delighted to have joining me in this epic quest. Two people from two great channels who will also be looking at this, giving their own spin on it. So that is Annie from Obscure Book Adventures is a co-host, and also Duncan, Back Away from the Donkey, Baft Books, is a co-host. So you've got a triumvirate of folks to help guide through all of this, and we've all got our own TBRs, recommendations, ways we're going to approach it. So we'll be doing the usual kinds of things. There'll be announcement videos from the co-hosts as well. Remember, this is for April, so it's just the start of March now, so we've got a month lead in time. We'll devise a Kong themed tag, so that would be one of those things where the prompts are themed on they'll be related to King Kong in some way, but the answers could be any book whatsoever. So even if you would not be seen dead reading a King Kong book, you could do the tag. Probably a live discussion, maybe a Poetry Thursday.
Maybe.
Stuff like that. Okay, with me so far? I'm going to talk TBR for myself, so I guess what sowed the seeds of the idea was coming across a paperback copy of the King Kong novelisation in a second-hand bookshop, in fact in a sort of hut in a National Trust garden, and I've never actually read this. I've read other books with King Kong in them, but never read the original. Although, what is the original? It's the credits: Edgar Wallace and Marion C. Cooper, novelisation by Delos W. Lovelace. So there's obviously multiple hands involved in this. There's a really interesting video by Andrew at It Came From The Page talking about novelizations, where he goes into this sort of the weirdness of this authorship, because it was a movie, but you know, so is it a movie, novelization? Where does it come from? Anyway, yes, quite a short book here that I'll definitely be reading that. But I've also got a recent book, which I've not really looked at this yet. I mean, obviously it's a lovely, lovely thing. Komg, an original screenplay, Edgar Wallace. So Edgar Wallace was this huge, super popular crime and thriller writer. So as a brand in his own right, attaching him to your movie was a good idea. And clearly too, he didn't write the novelisation, but he did write the script. So this book is presenting the script with lots of contextual stuff that looks really interesting and beautiful. And I guess it'll be making some claims about Wallace's involvement in the origination of King Kong. So yeah, that looks interesting. So those are kind of the source text. Like I say, there are other books with Kong in them. I've already read Will Murray's 2 books with King Kong. One he teams up with, not teams up, it's a crossover with Tarzan of the Apes, ingeniously interwoven with the movie story. And the other one is a crossover with Doc Savage, Skull Island, which is good because that sounds like a Doc Savage type of title, but it's also the name of the island where King Kong lives. So I do recommend those. Anyway, yes, those would be my King Kong himself reads. I would also look at maybe trying to fit in another novelisation. So there was a movie in 1976 which I really liked at the time, but like I was 15 or something, so you know, who knows. Dino De Laurentiis King Kong. I've got a making of book. I read this at the time. I think I've somehow read the making of book before I saw the film. But I don't think this one had its own novelisation. I think they just reissued the original book at the time, whereas the Peter Jackson King Kong, that does have a novelisation by Christopher Golden, the very chap who wrote... We're listening to Slayers at the moment. It's a set in the Buffyverse, and it's got lots of the original Buffy performers in it. And Christopher Golden is co-writer of that. Complete aside. Moving on to copies of Kong. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Konga. Konga was a movie. What a movie. They were trying to make a big spectacular movie. The kind of man in a suit towering over a shopping centre in Croydon had a certain element of bathos to it. Nevertheless, qualified for a novelisation. Look at that face peering out though, it's lovely. And also spawned a bunch of comics, and the comics are quite well thought of. Drawn by Steve Ditko. So I've got those, so read that as well. I will seek out the movie and rewatch that. Comic-wise, comics are full of giant gorillas, and I can only imagine a comic called Giant Superheroes Battle Super Gorillas will be pretty much in the wheelhouse I'm looking at here. Then there's a mock King of Legend. The picture of giant ape standing on a building on the front came out in the mid-70s, about the same time as that movie I was talking about, the 76 one with Jessica Lange, by Bernard L. Ross, who is in fact Ken Follett of the big 1,000-page Let's Build a Cathedral books. So this was obviously early work. And I did read this way back in the day, so I can't remember much about it except thinking it was great. So a mock king of legend. And then to look more widely in the world of the monsters, there's these Godzilla novelisations that people speak very highly of. Beautiful book. This was a Christmas present from Dr. Jennie. Are we reading those as well? Godzilla and Gadzuki. I don't think Gadzuki's in these, but
Gadzuki in any of them?
I'm not sure. I think he's only in the cartoons.
Ooh.
Gadzuki. Okay, that's the idea of King Kong Giant Ape-ril, Jennie says.
Just apropos of, I don't know what really. Do you remember Kitten Kong in the goodies?
Oh,
Did a skit based on King Kong.
I do remember
Where a
Kitten Kong.
climbed up a giant kitten climbed up the post office tower in London.
Proof of the cultural impact of giant apes, which is why I'm wearing the t-shirt. There's badges too. Can you yourself get a? That's not a badge. That's somebody else. What do you have to do to get one of these, I wonder? Well, we'll find out, won't we? join the Hair Bear bunch doing videos about giant apes. So there you go, Giant Ape-ril coming your way in April. And do subscribe to the other co-hosts, because the stuff they've got in mind sounds really awesome. Yes, good. Other than that, back soon with something else.
Lou.